By now we understand the standard controller and the standard list controller. In both these controllers we actually did not have to define any logic, we just needed to call the controller, that's it, and our life was very easy. Now our life is going to become a little more difficult because we'll have to write the logic on our own. So you will write the logic, you will write the instructions, what you want to see on the page. So there is one advantage of the custom controller, that you can have a page exactly as per your requirement. If you want to display data from 3 different objects on the same page, you can do that. If you want to display a list of records with some criteria, some filter criteria, you can do that. If you want your button to act, to have an action as per your requirement, you can do that. So you don't have to work with the standard actions, you can define your own actions. But what you'll have to do for all these things, you will have to write all the instructions and all the logics. Okay, to write those instructions and logics, we will use another programming language, that's Apex. Okay, so designing of the markup on the page will still happen with the Visual Force, but instructions will be written using Apex. Fair enough, right? Because Visual Force is not a proper programming language, and you cannot write logics in Visual Force. You can just design the interfaces. So for writing the logics, we are going to use another programming language, which is Apex. Okay, so we start our discussion on Apex. We will understand what is Apex, and then we will start doing some examples using Apex. So first thing, even if someone is not that much into programming, or someone who has not done programming before, please don't get worried, don't get scared. Apex is very simple language. There are just a few things which you need to understand about Apex. Okay, and then we can start into our examples also. So first thing that any programming language has is variable, right? We deal with variables. We define variables, and then we assign the values, and we compare the values, and based on that we do some action. So any programming language has variables. All right, now since we have variables, we have data types also for the variables, right? Data type of the variable means like a string, integer, boolean, decimal, time, date. These are all data types. All right, so there are a few data types that we have in Apex. So I'll start the discussion on the Apex. Just give me one moment. Just give me a minute. Okay, so here we are. So what is Apex? Apex is a strongly typed object-oriented programming language. Okay, so for people who do not understand what is strongly typed, what is object-oriented, don't worry. Just consider it to be a programming language, as simple as that. That allows developers to execute flow and transaction control statements. Okay, sorry. Okay, so we are talking about this Apex. So Apex is primarily a programming language that allows developers to execute flow and transaction control statements. So which allows you to have your own flows and transaction control statements. Okay, so basically define your own logics and instructions on the force.com platform. So this Apex is a language which is native to the force.com platform. Apex enables developers to add business logics to most system events. So Apex enables you to add some logic, business logic. We have done that earlier also, right? Workflows and validations. So that sort of stuff can be done using Apex also. So that sort of comparisons or initiating some action, that can be done using Apex as well, right? So you can add business logic to the system events. System events are like click of a button, load of the page or something like that, including button clicks, related record updates, and visual force pages, right? When the pages get loaded, when the buttons are clicked, when the records are updated, right? So you can execute some other logics on these events using Apex. All right. So now we start our discussion on the data type. As I told you, any language will have variables, and for variables, because this is a strongly typed programming language, we need to define the data type with each variable, right? So if your variable's data type is a string, then you should define it as a string. If it's an integer, you should define it as an integer. So there are different types of variables. In Apex, all variables and expressions have a data type that is one of the following. So there are some data types which are allowed in the Apex. First one, the most common one, is the primitives. Then is the SObject, then is the collections, and then under collection we have lists, sets, maps. Okay, so these are the different data types that we have in general in Apex. Okay, primitives, SObjects, and collections. Under collections we have list, set, maps. All right. So we'll start with the primitive data type. What is exactly the primitive data type? Primitives are the basic data types that you see in other programming language also. Okay, like a boolean can only be assigned true or false. So boolean is either a true or a false. So boolean is a data type which can hold a true or false value. Decimal, a number that includes a decimal point. Double, a 64-bit number that includes a decimal point. ID is something which is very specific to Salesforce Apex programming language, right? So this refers to ID data type, refers to the Salesforce.com ID. Remember, we used to take up the ID and put it in the URL for the standard controller. That is what ID data type mean here. Integer, the normal integer, a 32-bit number that does not include a decimal point, a whole number basically. Long, a 64 number that does not include a decimal point. String, any set of characters like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, colors, weekdays, holidays, countries, those are strings. Date, a value that indicates a particular day. So date is again date value. Date time, a value that indicates a particular day and time. Time, a value that indicates a particular time. So these are the simple data types, and you must be familiar with some of these data types because we have used similar kind of data types in the fields also while creating the fields. But in fields we have a lot more options. In primitives you just have a few options. You don't have that many options. Like for fields I had phone, I had email and all that stuff, but we don't have those things here. We just have these primitive data types: boolean, decimal, double, ID, integer, long, string, date, date time, time. All right. Okay, so this is one set of data type, and how these data types are defined. So the first is primitives, right? We are talking about primitives. How are primitives defined? It's very easy. Integer I equals 83, or string color equals red, or string weekday equals Sunday. Okay, so this is how our primitives are defined, right? So whatever primitive data type you define, you should first of all define the data type and then the name of the variable, and then if you want to assign some value to it. Okay, so that's about primitives. Now let's move on to so primitives is simple one. Now move on to the second data type. SObjects, which stands for Salesforce objects. Okay, what's a Salesforce object? The Salesforce objects that we have: accounts, opportunity, contact, right? So when a data type is a Salesforce object, the data that goes inside that is the record of that object, right? So in other words, if my variable is a record, if my variable is a number, then I should define the data type as an integer. But if I want to define a variable for a record, an account record, then my data type should be account, which is an SObject, right? The term SObject refers to any object that can be stored in the Force.com platform database. So basically the Salesforce objects. An SObject variable represents a row of data. So it's not one single value, it's a row of data in that particular object, and can only be declared in Apex. So SObject is native to Apex, and it can only be declared in Salesforce or Apex. For an example, you can say account A equals new account, or my custom object CO equals new my custom object. Okay, so we can define it like this. Sorry. So SObject data type is defined with the name of the object. So you can say account A equals new account, name equals IBM, type equals customer, whatever. So now this variable A, this becomes a complete row of data for account object, which has name, which has type, it can have more values, right? And then you can say insert A. So insert A will basically insert the record A inside the table. Correct? So that's about our SObject data type. In other words, I can also say contact C equals you can also write a select query to fetch the data from the existing database. Let's just select first name, last name, first name, last name, email from contact, where email equals, let's say, contact gmail.com. Correct? So that's the thing. That is how these data types are defined. Are we clear on this? SObject, how it's being defined, right? So whichever object you are referring to, if you want to define a variable for a row of data from any object, you should name that object as the name of the data type and then write the name of the variable. As simple as that. Okay. Now the next thing that we are gonna talk about is the collection data type. So SObject we have understood. Now we will talk about collection. So under collection we saw that there were three things, right? First is a list, then set, then map. Okay, so let me get into the list thing. What is a list? A list is an ordered collection of primitives or SObjects. Okay, so what's a list? It's an ordered collection of primitives or SObjects. List is an ordered collection. What is this ordered collection? Collection of primitive or SObject we can understand. More like an array. People who are familiar with that array kind of thing. Okay, but array is applicable only for primitives, right? But list is something which is, the list is a terminology that is used in Apex, and this list basically refers to collection of primitives or SObjects, right? So a collection of it can be a collection of strings, it can be a collection of numbers, it can be a collection of accounts, right? So that is what a list is. Okay. However, because while we are talking about collection, this is an ordered collection. Yeah. So while we are talking about the collection here, there is another word which we see. It's an ordered collection. What does this ordered collection means? Collection we understand, but what is that ordered collection? Ordered collection means the values which get into this list, they are set in a particular order. Okay. Which means every value has an index number. Okay. And these values are identified by the index number and not by the actual value. Got it? Like if red is the first entry in that collection, it gets index 0. The first entry always gets index 0. The second one index 1, third one index 2, index 3. That way, that is how it goes, right? Which means in case I have red appearing here again at index 3, it will not be considered as a duplicate because the values are being identified by the index number. Correct? So the advantage of an ordered collection is that you can accommodate duplicate values. There are lists where you need to accommodate duplicate values. So the values are not identified by the actual value, they are identified by the index number. So if there is a repeat entry also, that gets accommodated. Fine. The index position of the first element in a list is always 0. So every value will have an index position. The first one will have an index 0. Okay. So this is how you define a list. This is how you add value to a list. Okay. And this is how you retrieve the value from a list. Okay. So let me just show it to you. Let's say you want to define a list of string. So you should write it like this. Colors. Okay. New list of string. So earlier we just were using the keyword string. Now you should use list of string. Okay. If you want to define a list of integers, then you should write it like list of integer numbers. Give it any name, of course. New list of integer. Now in this colors list of string colors, if you want to add a value called red, then what you should do, you should just go ahead and say colors. No, this is the name of the list, colors is the name of the list. So say colors dot add red. So now red will get added to which index number? What will be the index?
0.
0, because this is the first entry. After that I write one more line. What will be the index number of green?
1.
1. If you make another statement, colors dot add red again, will it get added?
Yes.
It will get added. Why? Because it will have, this red has a different index number. The index number for this red is 2 and this is 0, right? And the values are identified by the index number. So according to the list, this red and this red are different because they are at different positions. As simple as that. Okay. So that's the thing. Now if you want to retrieve the value from index 1, then what you should do? You should just use this. You can use it like this. String favorite color, define another string equals colors dot get say 1. Okay, so this will do what? This will return green to this variable. So favorite color will become green. Got it? So that is the thing, that is the logic, that is how things work. So that variable dot get allows you to fetch the name from the list, string, or it can be anything. Alright. You can also set some values here. If you want to set a certain value to a certain index number, you can use this syntax. Okay, like colors dot set. So this will add a value to a certain index number. So you can always do that. Okay, so this is all about using the list with the primitives. So we are looking at primitives. How do we use the list with the SObject? Now if I want to see, when I was talking about SObject account A is a single account. It always talks about a single account, right? But if I want to talk, display multiple accounts, then again I need list. Remember record set where list of accounts, standard list controller. So if you are willing to define a list of accounts, then what you should do? Let's say all the accounts from in the energy industry. Then you should use list of account, same way, no difference. Just define it as list, call it anything, and equals, and then you can write a SQL query here. Select name type from account where let's say industry equals energy. So this list will now hold all the accounts where the industry is equals energy. List of contact equals, let's say, select email from contact where email is not null. So all the contacts where we have a value for the email, where I have some email ID, right? So now this ways, writing these kind of queries, we can use, or we can display the data which we want exactly. We can put the where clause and all that stuff, which was not available in the standard list controller. So standard list controller was simply displaying all the records from that object. But if you want to put your own logics, I just want to see all these contacts which have this criteria met, or which have some other criteria being met. In that case, you always have to go with the custom controller, and in the custom controller these kind of queries can be written. So while we start talking about examples, we'll do these examples. So I hope we are clear with the list. Now the next collection type, which is a set. Okay, so set is definitely the other way around, not similar to list. A set is an unordered collection of primitives or SObjects. So this is unordered collection. This is also a collection, but this is unordered collection, which means there is no index number associated with the values, which means San Francisco is San Francisco. So there is no index 0 or index 1 or something, which means this is identified as San Francisco. So if you try to enter one more San Francisco, that list will see that okay, this value already exists, and it will ignore that. So it will not make second entry of the same value. Okay, so sometimes our requirement is just to keep the unique values. Sometimes our requirement is to allow the duplicate values. Depending on my requirement, I should pick whether I want to go with a list or a set. Okay, so something like a set of integer. So the way you add a certain value to the set is exactly same, dot add. Okay, there's no such difference between the list and set. Yeah, execution will be different. And at the time of execution, if it finds the value is already there, then it will not be re-entered. It will just ignore that. Okay, there's another method which can do a system.assert. So this method can actually check whether the set contains an element or not, a certain element or not, right? If you want to remove some value from the set, you can use s.remove. Okay, basically variable name dot remove. Okay, so that is the set. We have talked about two collections. One is set, one is list. List is ordered, set is unordered. There's one more type of collection which is called a map. Map is a collection of key value pairs where each unique key maps to a single value. Okay, so map is basically not one collection. In map there are two collections and one collection is mapped to the other one. Okay, so in the map thing we have two collections. One collection is mapped to the other collection. So let's see, you can do a map of integer and string. And so before I get into this, let's say I have a list of countries and I have a list of currencies. Okay, so this list of countries should be what data type? This should be list of string, right? Countries are string, currencies are also string, so this is also a list of string, right? So this is what it is. So the moment we try to map these two lists, we map it like this: map of string to string. Okay, so mapping has two things. Okay, in the mapping you see there are two things which are being used. So the first one is the key and second one is the value. So this is also called key value pair, which is pretty simple. So country is going to be the key and currency is going to be the value. So for which country which currency is used. Now you're in the first list you can have US and you define currency for that as USD, and then you can have China. I do not know what's the currency of China. You define India and the currency is INR. Okay, and then you define, let's say, Canada, and again you define USD. I'm just typing USD because I just want to show that the values can be duplicate. Key should not be duplicate, correct? So key value pairing, same value can appear for two keys, but there should not be same key for two different values. That will make life difficult for us, correct? So keys should be unique. The key side should be unique always, but value can be repeat. So there can be same value applicable on multiple keys. Make sense, right? So you define it like this: map string to string equals, give it a name, let's say currencies, and then you say new map of string and another string and we define it like this. US Alright. Correct. So this is how we can actually define the map. Okay. So basically where you have to define some mapping of values, there is a key and you have to define the mapping of the value. That is where you can use it. Alright. Okay. So then how do you use this? To use it, what you can do is you can define, let's say now you want to use the US currency. So you can say another string US currency equals currencies dot get and USA. So this will return dollar automatically. So if it's a big list, it can easily fetch the value from the map. Got it? Navita, you have a question?
Sorry, it was a wrong message.
What is that?
Sorry, it was a wrong message. Sorry.
Okay. So everyone is clear on this? Alright. Now let's start understanding how do we use this. So we have understood basics. Even if someone could not understand too much of it, even if you have understood some part of it, don't worry. The moment we start doing examples, all these doubts will get clear. Now, if we are, if we have to use a controller, first of all, what I'll have to do is I'll have to write my code somewhere, okay, and then I'll have to call that code on the Visual Force page. Got it? On the Visual Force page, I'm not going to write the code. So it's going to be very simple. What we're going to do, we'll create a class. Okay, we'll create an Apex class, write our code in the class, and we will call this class on Visual Force page as a controller. Okay. Now in the class you should define the variables and methods. So class should basically have the methods defined. Alright. So let's do a very simple example of creating a class which says hello. Okay, just give me 1 minute. Let me log in. So I'm gonna use a very simple I'm going to use a very simple class, okay, which can display or return a certain string on my page. Okay, let's say a string called hello that I want to display on my page. I'm just going to write a class for that. So for creating a class, you just need to go to setup, go to develop Apex classes, go to setup, develop Apex classes. Alright, click on new. You should first of all define the class and its name. You should always write public class, give it some name, let's say C1. Name is whatever you want to give. Done. Public class C1. Now inside this class, I told you I want to return a string on the page. So I should we should define here string hello equals hello, how are you? Okay, but I cannot directly call the string on the a variable on the Visual Force page. To call it on the Visual Force page, I need a method which would return this string. Okay, so I will define a method public string get hello return hello. That's it. So this is my method. Okay. So in this method, first is the public part. Okay, so this is a public method. Anything that you want to call outside this class needs to be public. So we have defined it as public because we are going to call it on the Visual Force page, the method. String is the return type of that method. What is it going to return? It's going to return a string. Okay, get hello is the name of the method, and then in the second line you simply define what needs to be returned. So it needs to return this string hello, right? So on my Visual Force page, I'm going to call this method. All right. Navita, you have a question, doubt? If anyone has a question, please do ask. Are we clear with this? So to get a variable's value on the Visual Force page, we have to define a get method, which we have done here. Okay. Why I have written it as a public method? Because I want to call it in the Visual Force page. So any method which needs to be called in Visual Force page has to be a public method. String is the return type of that method, what data it would return. This is the name of the method, and this is actual execution. So return hello. So this method, when called, it will return the value of hello. That's it. Save it. Okay.
Ji, I got your screen stuck. I didn't see the full procedure. Directly came /body.
Just 1 second. Now is it okay? When you see the code?
Oh, now I got your main screen, that SFDC training screen.
Now what screen you guys can see? Apex class or which one?
Yeah, now I got that. But the way you saved and all, I missed the full thing.
Which one, sorry?
You wrote the code and you said you should call the code and all. I missed how to call it all.
So we have not called the code, we have just written the code at this point of time. Fine.
Okay.
So we went to set up, develop Apex classes, we have written this code. Okay. So
Okay.
there's this class name, there is a string that I have defined hello. Okay. And there's a method I have defined. Alright. Now this method will return the variable hello. Okay, so if you call this method will return this hello, okay, on the Visual Force page. So we have not yet called anything. The class is ready, save it, done. Now go to your Visual Force page, just keep your class here, saved, go to Visual Force page, apex slash v6. Will we create v6 or v7? Okay. Go to the Visual Force page and start creating the page. So first thing that we'll have to do is controller is going to be the class that I have created. What is the name of the class? What's the name of the class?
Hello?
Yeah.
C1, oh sorry.
C1 is the name of the class. So your controller in this case should be controller equals C1. Okay. So I have already called the class here as a controller. Now inside the page you can call the method. Okay. That's it. So if your method name starts with get, you always don't have to call it with that get name. Visual Force can only you can only call the name of the method after get, whatever you have defined. So if you call hello here and save it, it returns hello how are you, which is the value of that particular variable. Got it? So now you can define whatever variables you want there, and you can write the methods and you can get those values on the Visual Force page. Is it fine? So this is how simple it is. We just define the class. Inside the class you define your variables, you define the method so that it can return the value of the variables, and then you call those methods in the Visual Force page to return the values of the variables. Alright. So just go back and work on this one. Alright. Try to create small. This is really small class that we have created. Try to create a few more, 2-3 more small classes, and be a little more familiar with it. Try to call them on the Visual Force page. Define method, call it on the Visual Force page. Again, define another method, call it on the Visual Force page. Right. Just do that part, and once we meet tomorrow, we are going to talk about few more examples. All right.